Come up next at the movies, a visit to the notorious 30s Harlem hangout, the Cotton Club.
Life with you will always be divine.
You people, and you kill Dutch.
The film is Francis Coppola's The Cotton Club, one of the most eagerly awaited films of the holiday season, a film that has had a much reported on troubled production history, but who cares about that? It's the movie that counts, and The Cotton Club, the movie, turns out to be a fine but wildly uneven picture with a lackluster star at its center and a story, I think, that doesn't really kick into high gear until the second hour. In reality, the Cotton Club, the nightclub, was a celebrated Harlem hangout where the greatest black entertainers of the day, Duke Ellington, Cat Calloway, Lena Horne, and many others, performed for exclusively white audiences that included the most notorious gangsters and show business stars of the day. And grafted onto that reality about the club is this story of how a white cornet player, Richard Gere, becomes adopted by mobster Dutch Schultz when he saves Schultz's life at the club.
Worry about it. Listen, it's good.
Yay! Bravo! All right.
Buddy, come over here. Here's $5. Nice trumpet.
Hey, will you come over here?
Yes, the big one.
Hey, that trumpet duel was great, but you beat him bad. You ought to be put away for laughter.
Hey, girls. Hey.
Get it, Nicole.
What are you sitting there all alone for? Come here. Give me a chance to dazzle you. Take you a breath away.
Do it. Come on. Okay.
Look out. Look at this. Kid's got the Midas touch with the broad. Park her right here.
What am I going to sit on?
You know, I'm having that.
What a rude man.
Just your name, huh? All right, Veronica, Alice, am I right?
Forget it.
I got a Myrtle here.
Vera, as in very, very. Cicero, like in Latin. Did you ever study Latin?
I was an altar boy.
Myrtle, huh?
Yeah.
Is that your birth name?
I was.
I believe
Hey,
it.
you wearing a girdle?
Yes. Oh, that's a lovely time.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Going with anybody?
Yes. Ring on my finger, honey. What are they doing?
Behaving, Miss.
Wanted by the police, Miss Cicero.
Good night, fellas.
Look out! Go after him! What the hell is this? Some people don't like me.
Who the hell are you, anyway?
I'm your Dutch uncle from now on, pal. I owe you one. Dutch Schultz owes you.
That was James Remar as Dutch Schultz doing an imitation, I think, of Eddie G. Robinson in Little Caesar. And Diane Lane there as the pretty young girl who both Richard Gere and the Dutchman find attractive, and there will be a conflict in the film over that. In addition to the story of those white people, the Cotton Club has a black story to tell of two tap-dancing brothers and how in the crazy world of the Cotton Club, where somebody is always stepping on top of somebody else to get ahead, one of these brothers has given the other brother the shaft, and now years later, after they haven't talked for years, the big star comes back to apologize to his brother.
Why don't you and your brother Clayton dance together?
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on, guys. When a highbrow meets with lowbrow, walk along Broadway. Soon the highbrow, he has no brow, ain't it a day? And you're to blame. What's the use of a pro of this chestnut? You produce the same condition. Crazy me.
That's one of the very best scenes in the movie. That was Gregory Hines apologizing to his real-life brother there, Maurice Hines, and that's one of a number of great moments in this film, which was just too short for me, too short to tell all of its stories completely. And another problem is Richard Gere, who I find utterly lacking in humanity on the screen of late. He's a real drag in this picture, and Yet for every problem with the Cotton Club, I can name at least 2 or 3 things that are terrific about it. The show production numbers, a raft of fine supporting performances, including one great imitation of Cab Calloway, a magnificent sequence involving Gregory Hines, tap dancing to mobsters, gunfire, and a provocative theme in the film about how people get ahead in America, often by stepping on top of other people. So I did like the Cotton Club. I just wish there were more of this movie and less of Richard Gere.
Well, Richard Gere didn't bother me. I thought he was just fine in the picture, but I agree with you that there should have been a lot more of the movie. In fact, another hour, and they say they have 200,000 extra feet of this film.
I'd see every foot.
Let's put some of it in. They probably thought, well, it's too long. We won't be able to get it into theaters if we make it that long. But what it has is the same kind of richness that The Godfather had, the same kind of complexity, and the same kind of nostalgic sort of elegiac memory feeling. I mean, you have the notion here that years are passing and that lives are being made, that some people are being successful, that other people are failing, that it all happens with this musical background, which was the same thing that Coppola had on The Godfather. A real epic story, wonderfully told, great character performances by another dozen actors that we haven't mentioned yet.
You know what's going on in the movie industry right now? They're all afraid of the 3-hour film. The Right Stuff bombs, and everyone's saying, keep it to 2 hours, keep it to 2 hours. And I'll tell you that it's a terrible development. And I think that, I hope that in some way that this film gets released in a much fuller version, a 3-hour version, or even longer.
You know, 2 guys you ought to mention are Bob Hoskins and Fred Gwynne. Bob Hoskins plays the little club owner. He was in The Long Good Friday, that great British crime picture. Fred Gwynne is a real tall, kind of monster sort of guy who plays a character named Frenchie, and their relationship in the movie, I think, is as good as anything else. That funny kind of love-hate.
The other thing I like is that it's a musical with a social conscience. And the last one we saw was Cabaret, one of the great American musicals. This is another one in that way, because this film has a lot to say about segregation, racism, and the way people have to struggle in the various classes.
It's got an edge.
Very hard edge.
It's got a cutting edge. Next at the movies, Sissy Spacek and Mel Gibson do Battle with the River.
Don't tear me down. All I got was growing in these fields.